This is Andy Purewal for Boxing Social in association with Betfred, and I'm delighted to be joined by Jack Catterall over Zoom. Jack, first and foremost, how are you doing?
Yeah, very well, thank you. All good, just having a couple of days relaxing, boxed at the weekend, picked up another win, but yeah, all good. How are you?
I'm all good, mate. It's good to speak to you, obviously, so soon after Saturday. We'll get straight into that. Firstly, congratulations on another win. How good did it feel just to kind of get back into the ring vote after a year out?
Yeah, I've said it before, I was very fortunate to get back in. A lot of fighters didn't get any work this year, especially the fighters on the small hole shows where they rely on ticket money. I was very fortunate that my management team and Frank Warren was to be able to deliver a fight for us this year. A couple of months back, I probably thought, you know what, it's probably going to get into next year and I probably won't get a fight. But again, grateful, got in there and it was amazing. It felt really good to be back in the mix.
Talk to me about the fight, Jack. Those initial rounds, did you feel the ring rust? Could you tell that it'd been a year since you'd last boxed?
You know what? I wouldn't say ring rust as such. Uh, there was a couple of changes of opponent before the fight. Uh, Again, I can't pronounce his name, but credit to my opponent. He's top amateur boxer, coming there with a 14-2 record. But if we did our homework, and if you look back through his
It's all good.
if you look back through his record, he's 14-2. But the two losses that are in his record, you could argue one was a robbery and the other one possibly a draw. So you're talking a decent level opponent. I went in there, got the 10 rounds out, had him down a few times. He managed to get back up, but all in all, I'm happy.
Abderrazak Houya, as the MC was.
Abderrazak, Houya, there we have it.
It was, as the announcer announced on Saturday night. Was it frustrating having somebody who was so tough, given that you had dropped him a couple of times in the fight? Was you feeling any sense of frustration, wanting to get that stoppage?
You know what? It'd be nice to get the stoppage, but no, you know what? If I'd have got him out in a round or a couple rounds, people have had stuff to say. Went the distance, people have stuff to say. You know what? It was 10 rounds. It is what it is. There's room to improve always. Uh, I had him down and hurt. He wasn't the most engaging fighter, but there's definitely stuff I can get back in the gym and work on, which I'm happy with.
We could see that he was a very, very tough opponent, but as we can also see, he wasn't really engaging, as you say, and as we can see from the fact you don't really have any marks around your face. Was that a kind of any sense of frustration there that he didn't look to kind of get stuck in a bit more, maybe give you a bit more of an opportunity to work a variety of different angles instead of you rather having to chase him?
You know what it was? There's a lot of pressure riding on these big fights. Obviously, I've been mandatory for the WBO world title now for well on 2 years, and it's like every time I get to that point where it's going to happen, there's always something come up, and I always have to fight. And it's like I've trained all year. In an ideal world, you'd get a top 10 ranking fighter, and you'd have a real good scrap. Uh, I mean, that's out of my hands. I wouldn't say I wasn't up for the fight. I've been training for the fight, but it didn't really excite me when they sent the opponents over. It was kind of I'll fight anybody, I'm ready. But I think you will see the best of me come these big fights when they've got that fear factor, and I'll get excited. I mean, Abderrazak, yeah, he was a tough opponent, but it didn't really like tip me off and make me feel like, come on. It was kind of like, you know what, I've got a job to do. In the back of my mind, it's like world titles are looming, but we dealt with it. We got another victory, win by all means, and we move on.
Moving forwards, we know again, you've mentioned it there, you're waiting for the Taylor Ramirez fight to take place so that you can face the winner. With that in mind, do you expect to fight once more before that fight takes place or when that fight takes place around a similar time?
I'll leave that to my management. I'll be back in the gym later this week, but in an ideal world, that fight happens sooner rather than later. I'd like to see Taylor Ramirez fight early next year, Jan Feb, and hopefully they can both through that fight safely, and we can get it on sooner rather than later.
Jack, just move away from yourself. I just want to get your thoughts on a few other things. Start off with the headline fight from your card on Saturday night. Daniel Dubois versus Joe Joyce. Joe Joyce with an impressive 10th round stoppage victory there. But what did you make of the fight?
Uh, we watched it. I watched it on my mobile phone. We were driving back from London. We didn't get to stick around and watch it. Uh, Again, real pick and fight. I tipped Daniel to win beforehand. I was proven wrong. I thought Joe Joyce's jab were really good. And Daniel, just for me, didn't have enough head movement. We've seen Joe Joyce in previous fights. He's always had a real good jab. And I thought maybe his camp would have worked on slipping, countering that jab and closing the distance. But for me, we're getting peppered with it. Again, they've said his eye's been fractured. He couldn't see. He did what he thought was the right thing and took a knee. The fight got called off. He's young enough to come again. Hopefully, they'd like to think he can rebuild, learn from that loss, and set things right in the future.
I'm sure you've seen all of the comments over social media, especially in the immediate aftermath of the fight, Jack. A lot of people suggesting Daniel Dubois quit. What were your thoughts on those comments?
You know what? I don't read into it too much. Maybe he did quit, maybe he didn't. He might watch the fight back deep down and think, what have I done that for? Maybe I could. I was ahead on the cards. I certainly had him ahead on the cards. Could he have gone 2 more rounds, being a bit more evasive on the back foot, moving around? Could he have got the victory? I don't know. That's only Daniel knows that. But I'd like to think if it was me in there, I'd find some way of seeing out 6 minutes and getting the victory. But as far as the social media goes, as a young kid, a lot of people read into the social media too much and it can be detrimental. So hopefully he's surrounded by good people, family and friends, and he can move on from Saturday night and come back in 21 bigger and better.
During the night on Saturday, Jack, we saw Mike Tyson and Roy Jones Jr. return to the ring. Did you catch that?
I didn't catch it. I tried to. I fell asleep in the fight before, woke up, I've not watched it back. I've seen the highlight clips. Mike Tyson was my favourite. You know what? It was kind of nice to see him in the ring. Obviously, far from his former self, but ultimately, he's doing what he wants to do. And you know what? I am going to watch it back.
Now, just to move forwards again, just to touch on a couple of your opponents before I leave you to enjoy the rest of your, not opponents, sorry, a couple of your campmates rather, before I leave you to enjoy the rest of your evening. Martin Murray getting ready for his own fight on Saturday, on Friday night rather. He's another world title crack for Martin. What are your thoughts now that it's here, Martin Murray versus Billy Joe Saunders?
Martin's very deserving of this fight. Been in a few world title fights. Been unfortunate in one of them. The fight was scheduled twice. I think it was earlier this year or last year. It's finally on. It's a big ask for Martin. Everybody knows that, but if anyone can do it, it'll be Martin. Been training alongside him. He's looking really well. And just sending all my support to Martin at the weekend and hope he can pull it off.
Martin said in a Zoom call yesterday he needs to try and make it uncomfortable. He needs to put the pressure on Billy Joe. He can't let him settle and get into his own rhythm. Is that the key with somebody like Billy Joe? Is that what Martin needs to kind of look to stamp his authority on the fight?
Of course, I can see the fight breaking down a couple of ways, but ultimately you've got a slick southpaw in Billy Joe. He's got really high skill sets, so it'd be nice to see Martin get rough and tough and like I said, unsettle him. I think the more unsettled he is, making maybe lose his head, and Martin can really put it on him and make it his fight.
Now, moving on to another cammate of yours, we've seen an exhibition fight announced earlier today between Stephen Ward and Fjord Bjornsson from Iceland. Talk to me about that one, Jack. How long have you guys known about it, and what exactly will we be seeing in this exhibition bout?
You know what? I seen the announcement before. I heard the rumours. I don't know the ins and outs of it, but I think Stephen half said it in his post earlier on. Like, there's a lot of fighters not getting any work. Like I said before, times are hard for everybody. I know Stephen's got a young family, and MTK and whoever else is involved have put together a show against this big weightlifter. So, listen, I'm happy for Stephen. He's got an exhibition over in Iceland. It's a few quid in the bank, so buzzing for him.
What should we actually expect from it, Jack? Because from the looks of it, I'm very, very happy. It isn't me stepping in there with Bjornsson.
My advice to Stephen is just hold your hands very high and just make sure you get out of that ring safely. He's got a long career ahead of him, Stevie. He's moved up to his new weight class. He's comfortable now, so I guess this is just a keep busy fight, so to speak. It'll be a new experience, but ultimately it's all part of the journey, and he's got to enjoy the journey.
Jack, we'll leave that there now. I'll leave you to enjoy the rest of your evening and enjoy your limited time off from the sounds of it until you are back in the gym. I appreciate your time as always. I'm sure I'll catch up with you again soon. Thank you for speaking to Boxing Social.
And top man, thank you. See you soon.